The solution-focused approach has been constantly developing and changing over the last 35 years. One of the founders of the approach at the Milwaukee Brief Family Therapy Center, Steve DeShazer, was a researcher. And he was constantly interested in the question, what could we do that would work better? What could we do that would be more minimal in terms of an intervention in people's lives? What could we do that would be simpler? And given the fact that he pursued these interests with rigor, the approach was constantly changing. And since Steve DeShazer and Insoo Kim Berg's deaths, the approach has continued to change. And so the way that we describe solution-focused brief therapy also has to change. So how do I describe the approach now? And I would describe solution focus in terms of a conversation that we have with people who come to see us. Now, to use the word conversation may be a little unhelpful in some ways, because when we use the word conversation, what we don't always notice or think about are discipline, focus, and rigor. And so solution focus is an incredibly disciplined, focused, and purposeful conversation. And the only way we can know whether the conversation we've had with a service user, with a client, with a coachee, with a patient has been useful is if someone comes to us bothered by something and leaves us saying that things are better. So what's going on in a solution-focused conversation? And I think what we have are three key areas of focus. The first is asking people questions which invite them to define their best hopes from the talking, what they want, how they'll be able to judge that their talking with us has been of use, what they want from the conversation. As many of you will know, solution focus is an entirely non-normative approach. We have no view on how people should live their lives. We have no view on what people should want from therapy. We have no view on, therefore, what we should be talking about, what we should be focusing on. And the only way we can start the conversation is by asking the client for a focus. What are your best hopes from our talking together? How will you know? How could you know that our talking together had ended up being useful? So the first area we focus on is to develop a focus for the conversation, a starting point for the solution-focused process. Having established a best hopes, a focus, a direction for the conversation, the second area of focus is to invite people to describe in real detail the life that contains the best hopes. So if the client, the person we're talking with, were to wake up with their best hopes happening, what would be different in their life? How would they know? So if, for example, someone were to say to us that their best hopes were to be more confident and to like themselves more, we would ask, imagine you woke up tomorrow more confident and liking yourself more in a way that was just right for you and just right for your life. How would you know? What would be different? And we ask questions which facilitate people in describing that life in real detail. 3 dimensions of description. How they will know, how other people will know, and how the difference will affect their interactions. So if you are more confident and you are going out more, if there is a partner and they've been mentioned, how would your partner respond differently to you? Oh, he would be really, really relieved. How would you know that he was relieved? Well, he wouldn't be worrying about me so much. So how would you know that he wasn't worrying about you so much? Well, I guess that he'd feel more able to follow his own interests, to live his own life. Okay. And if he were following his own interests, living his own life, would you be pleased to notice that? Yeah. So how would he know that you were pleased? Well, I'd be encouraging him. I'd be saying, great, so where are you going this evening? Did you enjoy yourself? Did you have a nice time? Who did you see? I'd be taking an interest in what he was doing. So we invite people to describe in detail the life that will be happening when the best hopes are happening. And we invite people to describe it from 3 positions. How will you know? How will other people know? And then embedding that life in patterns of interaction. So the first focus is, what do people want? Their best hopes. The second is to describe the life that contains it. And the third is to invite people to notice the elements of that life that they want that are already in place in their life. Tell me about the times that you do notice that you are a little bit more confident, that you are liking yourself a little more. Tell me about those times. And we might add, and tell me how you do those times, asking people for, as it were, their personal recipes for those times. So 3 areas of focus. What do you want? Best hopes. The life that contains the best hopes. The elements of the best hopes that are already in place. And then we could add perhaps just one more little element that we also focus on. And having asked people the elements of their best hopes are already in place, we might well ask, and what would be the tiniest signs, the smallest signs, that you're moving your life in the direction of the best hopes, the life that you want for yourself? What would be the smallest indicators of that? So there we are, 3 areas of focus. And then one way or another, we say goodbye to people. And if they do choose to come back, when they come back, we ask them, so what's been better? And we spend follow-up sessions amplifying a narrative of change, a report of change. So there we are, solution focus, conversation, an incredibly disciplined, focused, and purposeful conversation. And in those areas of focus, all that we're doing in solution focus is asking questions. We ask people questions. And what's important to remember is that those questions are not for our benefit. We're not trying to find out anything about the client. The questions are for the client's benefit. The point of the questions is for the client to hear themselves answering the questions. It's in the answering that actually the potential for change happens. So this is not me delving into the person's life, trying to find out about them. It's offering questions which allow the client to describe their life and their living in very particular ways. And when I can do that, what I notice is that clients are likely to change.